Welcome to the 1031 Exchange Passive Income and Investment Series. This show is brought to you by 1031navigator.com. 1031 Navigator is the best way to plan, execute, and complete your 1031 exchange with peace of mind and confidence while saving you both time and money.
Hey, Thomas Morgan here with 1031navigator.com. Hope you're doing well. Today we are talking about triple net deals for under $1 million. And I think this is going to be interesting for a bunch of different reasons. And we're going to solve a couple problems today that I've seen with different clients and different investors. But for number one, I think it's interesting because I would love to sit here and say, look at all these deals for under $1 million. Look how awesome they are. There's tons of them. There's great ones. They're low risk. They're passive, great tenants, great locations, etc. But unfortunately, that's just not the case. The joke, or kind of a running joke in commercial real estate, is before the internet was kind of getting going, the big commercial real estate data services did not track deals under $5 million. And commercial real estate investment was known as a business of transactions over $5 million. And don't get me wrong, deals under $1 million or $2 million or whatever are substantial. Deals under $5 million are probably about half my business. And the point of this episode is not to knock, $1 million deals or $350,000 deals or $600,000 deals, but it's just to basically give you the facts of what's happening. So what's happened with the podcast over the last 6 months or so, I've had several people come to me that have $900,000 or $700,000, or I had one this week for $150,000, another one this week for $200,000. And the deal is that there's really just not that many properties for sale, or quality properties for sale, triple net properties under $1 million. And what happens in that is a lot of the benefits and advantages we talk about on the podcast and the reasons you would invest in triple net property kind of start to diminish as the deal value gets smaller. And so, case in point, I'm just going to give you a couple quick examples of some data I pulled using Crexi. Crexi is a service similar to LoopNet that has a lot of different deals listed. It's free. I highly recommend it. It's great to find deals on pretty much any kind of commercial investment real estate deal. But I quickly did a search, and if you break it down by filter, and I did retail, industrial, and office, because those are typically the triple net properties. And I did absolute net and just net or triple net leases. It brought back nationally about 4,500 results. And then if you go under $1 million, apply the price filter, it drops it down to 700 or so deals. So that's 15% of, let's say, the inventory nationally. But here's kind of where the rub is that if you start looking at a lot of those deals, one of the first ones that come up is a dark Wendy's. Dark means vacant or not operating. Wendy's is paying the rent most likely, but they're not actually operating at the location. So that kind of tells you something, that the location, they weren't doing well, tenant wasn't doing well, they closed the store. And then you look at a few more, it says remaining lease term 2 years, or remaining lease term 4 years, or remaining lease term 1 year. So that's kind of what happens in these lower price point deals. All of a sudden you lose the benefits of the long-term lease. And so if we filter a little bit more and go down to 5 years or more left on the lease, it takes it down to 216 deals of the 4,500 deals. So all of a sudden, under $1 million, we went from 15% of the national inventory to 4.7%. So under 5% would be available to investors under $1 million. And then if you take it even a step further, a lot of things we talk about on the podcast or triple net is the passive income, hands-off investment. And so if you click the absolute net button and just show deals that are true triple net, absolute net, it takes it down to only 50 deals nationwide with 5 years or more, under $1 million, that are absolute net. So that's really not much inventory, considering we started with 4,500 deals as possible to consider. So what the issue is, if you kind of work backwards on the triple net space and how the leases are structured and how the tenants come into the deals and essentially set their rent with the developers, is that we kind of work backwards here. Is price of a deal is based on rent and cap rate. Cap rate is determined by the national market with interest rates and investor demand out there. So right now, cap rates are low. You could easily use a 5 to 7% cap rate on any deal with 5 years or more on the lease, depending on the credit tenant. And if the tenant is not very strong or the lease is shorter, you can get into the 8.5, 9 cap, even 11 cap deal. But basically, cap rate is what it is in the national market. Nothing you can really change about that. And then if you say, okay, well, why are these deals $1 million? And if cap rate is a fixed variable at this point, or a fixed data set, rent is the other variable. And on these deals, the rent is low, so that's what creates the value of these properties being under $1 million. For example, if we use $60,000 base rent and we apply a 6% cap rate, that is $1 million deal. And then if you apply a 7% cap rate to the $60,000 net operating income, that's an $857,000 deal. So basically, the rent on all these deals is low. It's a lot lower than like a Walgreens or a CVS that pays $250,000 or $375,000 or even $800,000 in annual rent. And that's why those prices are higher if you allocate the cap rate to that net operating income. So it leads to the question as to, well, why is rent lower? So the retailers and the restaurants set their rent based on how well they think the store is going to perform at a given location. So all of these stores have low rent because that's what the retailers think the store will be able to support. So, moving down the line, price is determined by rent and cap rate. Lower rent is determined by what the market will bear. If you don't use the rent setting based on the retailer, the other way rent is set is by looking at comparable rents in the marketplace. And on a $60,000 net operating income divided by, let's say, an auto parts store at 6,000 square feet, that's $10 a foot in rent. Or let's say a Dollar General at 9,000 square feet, that's $6.66 a foot in annual rent. And $6 to $10 rent almost anywhere in the country is low. Most retail strips, the rent will be $20, $25, $30, even up to $50 in just general, run-of-the-mill places where you might do your shopping this weekend. So two ways the rent is set: one, based on how the retailer thinks they'll do, and two, based on what the market demand is. And so a couple things, what that's telling me is that those locations are not very high demand. There's not a lot of retailers or maybe there's not a lot of consumer dollars where people are shopping, and there's not many shoppers, not much traffic, stuff like that. So what that tells us is that the location is really not that good. And so commercial real estate, if you go back to it, or investing in real estate, is driven by location, location, location. So what that means is that these deals, just inherent in their nature, are going to be in, I don't want to knock them, of course, because there are some good deals, and we're going to go over that in a minute, but they're going to be in the most like subpar locations in the country. And I don't want to, in this episode, knock location, because that's a whole different discussion, and based on the regions of the country and the local location with the traffic counts and the demographics, and we've done plenty of other episodes on that. But quickly, if I take the 200 or so results, so remember that was triple net or absolute net with 5 years or more under $1 million. So if I do a map search of there, based on what we just talked about with location, it's going to tell you that these are kind of the subpar locations or secondary locations. And so a quick just look on that, if we do a map search, Crexy has a feature. It kind of does little bubble maps or bubble dots of how many listings are in each region or each location. So for example, Southern California or California in general, under $1 million, there's only 7 listings. Arizona, New Mexico, only 8 listings. Florida, only 7 listings. The entire Northeast region of the United States, there's only 29 listings under $1 million. On the flip side, there's 42 just in the Chicago, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio region, 16 in Kansas, Missouri, 24 in Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, 19 in the Houston, kind of South Texas region, and then there's hardly any up in the Pacific Northwest. But that kind of gives you an idea, is that the higher priced real estate markets, obviously you're not going to find a good triple net deal, and those are usually the best markets, the biggest cities. So what this bubble map is telling me is that most of the locations are going to be in rural, kind of Midwest locations. And for example, I'm just going to narrow in down here, and I'm going to look at Indiana, and it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Takes like 17 listings in the Indiana or Indianapolis, Cincinnati region, and it breaks them out. Only 5 of them are near Indianapolis, 3 in Louisville, none in Cincinnati. There's 3 outside of Cincinnati. Then all the other listings are kind of in the, I don't want to say middle of nowhere, but they're just out kind of in the outskirts. They're not near a metro area. And then let's just look at Texas as well. So I'm going to zoom in on Texas. They're only showing 2 listings under $1 million, and that's south of Dallas, Fort Worth, not even in Dallas or Fort Worth. None in Austin, none in San Antonio, 4 down south, 1 in Houston, and then there's 12 in kind of Louisiana, which is some of the lowest income areas in the country, and in Mississippi. There's 6 in Mississippi, another 3 in South Alabama, 2, 4, 6, another 8 in South Georgia. So basically what you're looking at is just the inherent nature of the low rent, which equals the lower price point, equals the subpar locations. So unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. So deals under $1 million, not that many of them. They're not that great, and they don't have a lot of the qualities that we talk about in a bigger, like $2 million, $3 million, $7, $10 million triple net deal. So on the flip side, though, there are obviously some good deals to be had in this price point. And if you have a very specific, like 1031 requirement of, let's say, $990,000 or $770,000, there's deals to look at, deals to pick through. There, when you have 200 deals to look at, there's definitely some deals that are worth considering and buying. And even some of the shorter term deals that we're not even talking about on this list, if we're going from the 700 deals to the 200 deals, there's 500 deals there that have shorter term leases under 5 years, and some of those are high cap rates. So on the flip side, these deals under $1 million, a lot of the cap rates are 7.5%, 8%, 9%, even 11%. So you can get higher yields. And it goes back to just that location analysis and what risk you're willing to accept. So there are deals to be done under $1 million. You have to really look hard and really be patient to either buy those deals, or if you're in a 1031, you're going to have to settle and give up something. There's going to be a trade-off to be able to be in that price point. Another option would be to use debt, where if you have $1 million, do 50% loan to value, and then you could get into the $2 million range. And I've said it before, but if you can get over like $1.2 million, $1.5 million, then all of a sudden the caliber of the deals, the buildings, the location go up, and kind of the sweet spot is that $2 to $5 million range. Is you're going to get a lot of good real estate, a lot of good tenants, longer term leases, good locations, things like that in that $2 to $5 million range. And then when you get over $5 million, you're going to be in denser, more expensive, kind of, let's say, sexier markets. But the risk there is you have to be careful about overpaying, because those tenants could be paying way too much rent. Paying inflated rents at too low of cap rate creates a super high value. So you just want to make sure you're not overpaying when you get over the $5 million mark based on the inherent real estate value of the building or the land, or the market, whatnot, and see if you can replace that rent. But without straying too much, the kind of thing here, and I want to apologize to some of the listeners I've had discussions with them, and we've tried to find some deals, but Grant, if you're listening, and Doug, and Alice, and Rick, and Fahiz, so those are just some listeners that I've had individual discussions about lower price point triple net deals. And what's become of some of those questions, and that's kind of where I'm going with this, is that maybe the opportunity is to actually, if you have only $150,000, or if you have $300,000 or $700,000, and you don't want to just buy a standalone property, kind of average or subpar property, maybe what the solution is, and I'm not offering securities or investment solicitation or anything like that, but maybe what the solution is to invest in syndicated deals. And there's a lot of people, doing apartment syndications and mobile home park syndications, and there's a few people doing triple net syndications, but you kind of have to, network and know people and whatnot. But I think the opportunity would be for someone with, let's say, even as low as $50,000 or $200,000, would be to invest in a percentage ownership of triple net properties. So, instead of trying to invest $500,000 in a property yourself and you're buying some weird Jiffy Lube or double net Dollar General or something, you could invest in a $5 million Walgreens with a 20-year lease at a almost 6 cap, and not have hardly any risk and no management, no maintenance, whatnot. It'd be a passive investment. If you're in a 1031, that'd be a different discussion in terms of having to invest in what's called a Delaware statutory trust. But if you have $500,000, rather than buying like a weird Jiffy Lube somewhere, if you invested in a syndication, you could own 10% of a $5 million property and get all the benefits, depreciation passed to you, passive ownership, and not have to be worried about or stuck with a 2-year lease or a vacant building that you can't really do anything with on the flip side. So what I'm getting at here is to gauge the interest from the aforementioned people. I had those conversations about, they said they had interest in either syndicating deals themselves or having us syndicate deals in investing, or being introduced to other syndicators. And again, in no way, shape, or form is this a securities offering. What we're going to conduct here is a survey. If you are looking for a deal under $1 million, and depending on what cash you have for investment, what kind of property would you want to invest in? We've set up a survey to see if if you're interested in partial ownership or fractional ownership of triple net properties and getting to invest in higher quality real estate, longer term lease, better markets, stuff like that. You can go to 1031navigator.com/NNN survey, or just, spell it out, NNN survey. So 1031navigator.com/NNN survey. And the only info you have to enter is your email address and the amount of money you would maybe invest in a high quality triple net portfolio. And like I said, again, this is not a security offering. I have a couple friends that own REITs, and they're always raising money, private, they're essentially private REITs. into triple net portfolios. I have several people that are syndicating their own deals, both accountants and attorneys. And then I have some other developers who are syndicating deals. And yeah, we're looking at syndicating our own deals as well. But basically, we're just running a survey to see who would be interested and how much would they be willing to invest. So 1031navigator.com/NNN survey or triple net survey. In summary, I'm not knocking, smaller markets or lower income markets or properties that pay lower dollar rent or lower price points, stuff like that, because there are good deals to be had. There's people making plenty of money in this space. I've done one deal in particular on the triple net side where we actually essentially bought the deal for $250,000. We brought in the investor at $650,000. So we made a handsome development fee on that, and then the investor turned around and sold that for over $1 million a few years later, just on the cap rate basis. That was a 15-year Arby's we did. Essentially went from a vacant steakhouse to a 15-year absolute net Arby's, and that was all basically under $1 million. So there is money to be made in this segment, but if you are looking for a true passive income triple net investment, I think there's other options, or you might want to leverage up to get into the higher price point, or maybe invest in a larger portfolio where you could be a part owner of 10 properties or 20 properties or things like that. So again, not trying to knock the price point, but the facts are the facts. And when you have 4,500 deals nationally and only maybe 50 of them are absolute net leases with over 5 years, 1%, something like that, or maybe up to 5% of the deals are investable. You might want to start looking for other options. So interested to hear your thoughts and comments. You can always reach me at 1031navigator.com or text me 970-618-4086. And as always, if you want to call in, leave a kind of anonymous voicemail with just your first name with questions about this episode or any other episodes, you can call 970-300-1994. Again, 970-300-1994, and just leave a voicemail with your first name and your question, and we will maybe play that on air and answer the question on air. But thanks for listening. Hopefully this has been helpful, and stay tuned for more episodes coming soon.
Thanks for listening to the 1031 Exchange Passive Income and Investment Series. To help create, grow, and protect your wealth with 1031 exchanges and triple net properties, visit 1031navigator.com or call 1-866-539-1777. Again, call 1-866-539-1777. Make sure to remember to ask Thomas about our 1031 VIP program. You can put thousands of dollars in your pocket on your next 1031. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review it where your podcasts are peddled. And if you have a friend considering a 1031, make sure to share this show with them. A referral is the best compliment we can receive. Thanks for listening, and see you again soon. And remember, this show is provided for your informational and educational purposes only. Be sure to check with your accountant, lawyer, and/or other tax professionals and advisors before relying on this information. Although the information contained herein is believed to be accurate and reliable, we do not guarantee its accuracy or completeness, and it is provided without warranty. Common sense is the best practice.